Hello. We're starting a new series now. Full disclosure, I started this game and then I was taking breaks and then I was getting confused and I needed to figure out a new way to sort of go through this. So I'm gonna start over because now I know how the game works and now I know how to sort of handle the editing and everything because there's quite a lot to think about. So without further ado. Crimes and Punishment, Sherlock Holmes game. This is pretty old, I think, and I've played the games like other games in the series, but I've never played this except for when I started streaming. So I'll go through some of the things that I've spoiled for myself, and then just play it as normal.
Holmes, will you stop that? You are utterly mad. Stop, Holmes!
Is that you, Watson?
Yes, of course it is. And you almost killed me.
Nonsense. I was aiming for the vases.
Blindfolded?
Watson, quiet, please. I'm trying to concentrate. Ah, Lestrade. What is it this time?
He can see me. Well, here it is, and it's a good one, Mr. Holmes. A gentleman by the name of Peter Carey, also known as Black Peter, has been murdered.
A sailor, most probably.
What happened here?
Oh, Mr. Holmes, how could you?
It's the only exercise I've had all week. A grateful client from Limoges sent me a vase collection this morning. I couldn't think of a better use for it.
You're out of your mind.
I missed 4 out of 10.
Given you were blindfolded, that was very good. Can I have a try?
Am I the only sane one here?
I suppose that Watson is right, Inspector. A little brain work would be preferable now. Do please tell us more about Black Peter.
Peter Carey, born in 1845 and 50 years old. An ambitious sort, he achieved much success in seal and whale hunting around Scandinavia. Retired in 1884 with a small fortune. He invested his money in a property called Woodman's Lee, near Forest Row in Sussex. It was where he lived for 6 years, and where he was found dead yesterday.
Has the investigation already begun?
Yes and no. In fact, this crime is so mysterious that I would prefer you to join me down there.
Give me half an hour to prepare, Inspector.
Take your time and join me there. I have to go through the yard first. The merry men struck again.
What have they done this time?
They robbed a powder reserve. I'll meet you at Woodman's Lee, Mr. Holmes.
I should help Mrs. Hudson here. I also have several appointments that I must keep this afternoon.
I shall go alone, then.
Okay, so the way I'm gonna do this is I need to because I might take breaks, and also this game is different from the past games in the series where the game might probably eventually tell you how right or wrong you were, but for now you sort of have to rely heavily on what you've heard, what people have said, what you find, and things like that. So that means that you won't sort of get any conclusion really. So this means that I'm gonna have to, stop and think. So I will sort of try to just stop, edit out any sort of long pauses that I might have where I think, and then sort of give you the gist of what I think has happened, or whether I think anything really. But for now, there's been a murder, and it is Peter Carey, and we're going to figure out everything that happened, or as much as we can around what happened. And he said he was 50 years old, and that will place us, I think, at 1895, sorry. So it's good to know the sort of the year that we're in as well. We know that it's a murder. We know that he's a sailor, and we know that he is, let's say, or was wealthy, and he owns an estate. And I think I missed on some of the things that Lestrade said there, but what we're going to do is I think this might be a good way. So I sort of go through what I notice, and hopefully you won't notice more than I will, because then you'll be pretty upset about me not taking something into consideration. And also he mentioned the Merry Men and the Powder Reserve, which is sort of like I would imagine it is going to be the main quest of this game. And what I learned was that these sort of, I think, let me just check this one. Yeah, so these are, these include spoilers, like heavy spoilers for the game, so I will not click on them any more than I did now. This is the dialogue tab. This is where some of the documents are put, some are not, so I need to sort of read everything while it's happening, and then sort of summarize them up for myself, and then just hope that maybe the document will be saved or not. And also, I think I've sort of avoided this tab as well. The map, of course, you can't avoid, and there's no reason you should. And here you can sort of get clues on what to do next, but I sort of try to avoid these. But so this is what I missed, was 1884 when he retired, which is 11 years ago, or 12 years ago. So I'll write it down for myself, because I learned that you can't really trust the game in a sense. Like, what I mean is either the game gives you too much, or then it doesn't give you anything, or then it just gives you, rarely it just gives you something. So it's sort of going back and forth, and that's the reason that I can't really trust the game to save some information or pieces of knowledge that I might need. So I will be writing stuff down, and then I will because I realized at some point that this game sort of I need to take actual breaks, like just quiet time for like 1 or 2 minutes. So that's what I'll be editing out, just to sort of think about things and get things sort of sorted out in my mind. So we're gonna head over to Woodmansley. Oh, what was I going to do? That's what I missed.
You go along to Peter Carey's house. Mrs. Hudson.
Oh, right, get dressed. So Sherlock Holmes is sort of, as you can see, a master of disguise as well. Let's see, just a normal suit. So he can, you know, disguise himself and stuff if needed be, and so on, and he uses the art of, well, he's said to use deduction, but for example, he didn't use deduction when Lestrade was walking up the stairs. He sort of, what's the opposite of deduction? Just sort of not assumed, but, you know, made an estimate, made an educated guess, basically. So now we can leave. And I also learned there's like I sort of like the system in this game. It doesn't give you too much, where there are sort of clues that you have to put together, and then you need to sort of make a decision, and the game gives you sort of options for your clues, but there can be a lot of them. I would imagine later in the game there's going to be a whole lot of them, that the clues that you sort of have to put together, and then it'll give you suggestions on what the sort of end result is, but there is sort of plenty of time to think about it before the game gives you a conclusion, basically.
Mr. Holmes, I'm over here. Come on.
Right. So this is Woodmansley. There is a farm, so I'm gonna not be rushed by Lestrade right now, so I'm just gonna go through this area.
It seems that the garden was well maintained.
And then there's two skills. There's like imagination, which is like sort of giving you a picture of what happened in Sherlock's mind, basically, or at least a version of events. And then there's sort of I guess a talent or something, so it focuses. And I should have focused on that. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I miss when I talk, so I just talk and then realize that something's happening.
These footprints appear to be quite large.
Right, so in the previous games you could always like measure the footprint, but in this game, at least now, you can't measure things or clues.
Mr. Holmes?
And since I've gone through this mission, or this sort of case, I sort of know what's going on, but I will go through.
It seems that the garden was well maintained.
I will go through sort of the basics, and if something seems like I sort of already know what's going to happen, or know to look at something, that's because I've played this mission before. But I made a recording of them, but I sort of decided not to, or I decided to start again because things were getting confusing. I wasn't really focusing on the videos, and it just became trash, basically. But I will sort of try to remember some things from those and sort of explain my thinking back then as well, so that you'll not think I'm a genius.
Inspector Lestrade, when will you remove my husband's body? It's sacrilegious to leave him here like this.
As soon as we can, Mrs. Carey, I assure you. Allow me to introduce you to Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He's a detective. No doubt you've heard of him. I'll wait for you in front of the cabin, Mr. Holmes.
My condolences, Mrs. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Right. So the first thing I picked up now when she mentioned it is that she is sort of she said sacrilegious, which is a pretty strong word in a sense, but it's the age as well where people are more religious than before. So there is dialogue options, and then there is this, which is sort of looking at the character and then sort of making assumptions about them, basically. But then again, Sherlock is pretty good at, like, the character is always, his assumptions are usually correct. So what I do is, there are some things about her that you can sort of spot, and I try to move the cursor away from the character, and I try to sort of figure out what they are before I click them. So that sort of gives me time to think as well. So the pendant looks rather fanciful. It looks Greek, and I would imagine that's one of them. And things to say about it, I guess, is that it is, I don't know about the price of it, but she is sort of showing it. So I think it's like a souvenir from the sailor husband. A cameo. Right, I'm not sure what a cameo actually is, but I think it is like maybe a side portrait or something like that. And of course the cross. So I remember her actually being devout, but she is, I remember thinking that she is portraying herself as devout, sort of, but now I'm picking up on more cues on that she actually is. And a Catholic, of course. And then sort of white gloves, and I'm not sure, I guess they're just sort of lady gloves I'm not sure if they're like gardening gloves or something. They're gardening gloves, exactly. They have flowers on them, so I was thinking maybe they're gardening gloves, but they're white and clean, so I guess she doesn't use them for digging, maybe. And then the, was it the crested tit is the bird on the leather book, scraped down on it. And then, and that's a birdhouse, but I don't think that, oh, it does actually. Right. Let's start with the sort of obvious, the timeline, or creating the timeline here. And I'll actually just have a notepad here, just using the sort of using it to sort of draw events, and then I'll write down events as well, in a sense where I sort of keep up with, so that I'm not making any false assumptions, or try to eliminate as much of them as possible. So we'll ask when the body was found.
Do you remember at what time you found your husband's body?
In the morning, at around 7 o'clock. I noticed the cabin door was open, but I didn't go in to take a look, for I knew my husband would not have liked it. At around 10 o'clock I dared to glance in through the door and... oh dear.
Right, so two things, or well, a few things. Body found at around 10 o'clock. Door was open, 7 in the morning, and then also he was private in a sense where he wouldn't have people bother him when he was hanging out in the shed, or his private shack or whatever.
Madam, can you tell me if you saw or heard anything unusual upon the night of the murder?
At 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard a terrible scream. I thought nothing of it then. He would scream all the time when he was drunk.
Right, so private. Maybe functioning alcoholic, and then screaming while drunk. So he's, I mean, screaming alone when he's drunk, or screaming at people. So at least he's sort of aggressive in a sense, or I guess aggressive isn't really the word for that, but it's like he sort of acts out, and then I would love to ask her, like, yelling alone or not, but I guess he is. I'll just write down. There's a word between aggressive and neutral, which is sort of agitated, probably. At least agitated. So I'll try to make my notes in a way where they're not either true or false. That there's a possibility for them to be adjusted.
Can you please tell me what occurred on the evening of the murder?
Well, Peter got drunk in the evening. He was in such a terrible temper. Usually whenever that happened, he'd stay all night drinking in his cabin before passing out.
So normally gets drunk, has a temper, goes alone into the shed, and then passes out. And you can also sort of assume that she wouldn't start mentioning about, private things too much. So she might be hinting at him being violent. So we'll see how that works, and then we'll ask if he had any visitors or people hanging around.
Was your husband accustomed to receiving visitors?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I mean, he didn't really have many friends. He lived quite an isolated life here, after his retirement.
So, not many friends, but some friends, or some people that he was hanging out with. So that sort of makes things easier. If he was a really social guy, we would have a lot of suspects here. And this is something I remember that I picked up on, that the gardens are well maintained and stuff, and I was thinking, it's probably because it's possible that they take care of the garden by themselves, but also that it's not out of the question that they have a gardener.
The garden is very large and well maintained. Do you employ someone to look after it?
It is true, there is a lot of work, but my husband took care of it himself.
Right. So I'll try to sort of organize my taking note system while I'm doing this, but I'll also have to write down sort of the claims that people say, I guess, so that if they claim one thing and then we figure out something else is true, we not only can we bust them for a lie, but we can also use that to our advantage in different ways. Sort of like if someone is lying, there is a reason they're lying, so we can learn more once we know the reason why they're lying, and not only that they are lying. So, no gardener. And that they take care of it, I guess. Well, that comes with the territory, but I'll just write it down just in case. And this last one, I'm not really sure what it's going for.
You have indeed suffered a great loss, Mrs. Carey. Nevertheless, I believe it will be less of a burden for you soon.
Yes. Life with Peter was never easy, but he was still my husband.
He was different, wasn't he, when you first met him upon your return from Plymouth?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. Oh, my goodness, but how do you know about that?
So, pilgrimage, I think I did, well, not deducted, well, sort of deducted, because out of these options, it's like, it was like something that you need to know, and I didn't know about it, but...
You undertook a pilgrimage to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela when you were young. That much is evident from the rosary in your hand. The shortest route for the pilgrim from England to Spain is from Plymouth. I believe that you met Peter Carey as a young sailor there, and you married him soon afterwards.
That is indeed what happened, Mr. Holmes. How extraordinary.
Thank you, madam.
All right. So, she met the sailor, or Peter Carey, when she was young, and she did that in Spain on a pilgrimage. And Plymouth sort of Plymouth was the sort of side note on that, but that's the end of that dialogue. So we got everything out of her that we sort of needed or can do for now. And we are going to go to and observe the murder scene. And I'll sort of look around because I do remember this area. It's pretty small, so I'll just look around it so that you can also see what's going on if you're watching and not just listening. But it's a fairly large garden. And Lestrade is here.
Peter Carey's body is inside the cabin. We took care not to touch anything.
Right, so the door was left open and now it's closed, so that's something to note. So I'll just write down door is closed because I did just briefly type down door was open or left open. So this is something that I missed. Or no, I didn't miss it. I attributed it to the wrong thing. So let's have a look at it.
The door is locked.
Wait just a moment, Mr. Holmes, and I'll open it. I locked it yesterday to ensure that no one should enter the cabin and tamper with the evidence.
Ah, good thinking.
Hello.
What is it, Lestrade?
It seems to me that someone has tried to force it, Mr. Holmes.
Let me see.
Right, so it looks like someone tried to force it, and what I was thinking is, well, it doesn't really mean much because he was drunk, and he probably would have, missed the lock oftentimes, and then I just sort of, not brushed over it, but I was like, that could be a reason, so shouldn't put too much, shouldn't read too much out of it. Although now that I think about it, well, he's a sailor and he's strong, but I sort of like it. Maybe it looks more like it's been someone's tried to force it open rather than someone's just accidentally rubbing the key into it constantly, and because he was a private person, he could lock the door. So probably maybe didn't lock the door because his wife didn't bother him anyway. But you never know. And this sort of enables us to look at things. And this system, I think, is created so that we can make our own conclusions first, and then start seeing things, so that we won't sort of be spoiled, which is nice. But in other ways, the game then drops huge spoilers in other things, and if you look at them or look for them.
These scratches are fresh. You're right. Someone tried to force open the door.
I swear these scratches were not here yesterday.
Our mysterious visitor came here last night.
Well, he's not the man for the job. This lock is not a difficult one.
Perhaps he did not have the right tool.
Right, so let me get one more piece of paper out just for sort of people who have not been identified yet. Just general events or things that we know that happened. Someone did them, but we don't know who did them. So we're going to look at the lock, and we're going to think about who did it. So the timeline, I would imagine now, is the murder happened at night at around 2 a.m. Probably. Body was found in the morning of the next day around 10 a.m. Then they took... Did they take like an entire day? Entire day to look at the sort of the situation, and then they visited Sherlock or us in the morning. So this is basically the day, like 1.5 days after the murder happened. If I'm getting this right, because it's, or then, because I don't know what time it is now, and I'm not sure there's any way of finding that out really. Because it would be nice to get the timeline straight, so that if this is, well, let's see about that. Woodmansley. We are facing, I'm seriously doing this right now, we are facing, north is sort of that direction, I would imagine. And the sun is to the western side. That means that it's sort of afternoon-ish. So but he said he locked the door yesterday. So that bothers me. So we're going to have to go with words of people. If the game makes a mistake, then that's not on us. If Lestrade locked the door yesterday, then that means that the murder happened at night. They came here the next morning, at 10 a.m. They were investigating, and then they locked the door yesterday, and then today is the third, the third day in a way, so after the second day, or second day, I guess. Yeah, second day. Okay. Now that that's sorted out, we'll go inside.
What a terrible way to die.
Truly is. So I'll go through the room, but the way that I thought this happened when I came here the first time was, I think, that someone took a harpoon and just like rammed it straight through him. But then later on, it is stated that someone threw the harpoon and not someone didn't spear him. Someone threw it or harpooned him. So there's no reason to sort of pretend that that fact is any different. But that's how I remember looking at it the first time. And also, he was a whaler. He was in Scandinavia. So there's a map of that. Scandinavia is sort of relevant, at least, because it's been told to us and given to us. So we'll start with that.
Dundee. Hammerfest. It's a whaling map.
So, whaling from Scotland to Norway. So that he would be familiar with, well, he's going to be familiar with a lot of different locations because he is or he was a sailor. So, but he spent time in Scotland and then went north following the coastline of Norway to find whales.
The tooth of a sperm whale, probably from one of Peter Carey's catches.
And then we have to, it sort of gives us a hint that we have to use this somewhere. So there's an outline in the dust of the shelf.
This place is not covered with dust, like the rest of the shelf. An object was taken from here. It was larger than a book, a box or a small chest, perhaps.
So I think that's sort of too much conjecture in a sense, where he's imagining things, like literally imagining things, but in some ways there are things that I'm not going to see, like, or know or understand, and he will, and we are playing as Sherlock Holmes, so he's going to know more than us for sure.
The ship's logs of the Sea Unicorn for the years 1878 to 1884. Peter Carey was her captain.
Right, so just gonna sort of write down something about the locations as well. So 78 to 83. He was a captain of the Sea Unicorn. So that would give him about 6 years at sea, 7-ish. And that is Scotland, it says on top. I was like, that is some part of Britain. It looks sort of familiar, but then again not. So he is probably very familiar with Scotland. The bed, well, it's not made for sure, so I'm not sure what to make of that.
Old navigation instruments, nothing interesting. Peter Carey's boots, they look to be a size 8.
So I'll just write down the number as well, sort of practicing the note-taking thing. I don't need to write everything down. It's also a way, to distract yourself when writing, but I'll try to remember everything that happens, everything that sort of has anything to do with anything, really.
Harpoons for hunting whales.
So there's a bottle of rum and 2 dirty glasses. So that would hint at there being 2 people. 2 people at the scene. So let me write it this way. So I have one list for sort of evidence that I need to figure out, or sort of hint at what's going on. So what do the 2 glasses and a bottle of rum?
Rum. A sailor's drink. Someone drank from this glass recently. It seemed that Captain Carey was enjoying a drink before he met his death. Someone drank.
Alright, so I'll check that out in a second. So 2 glasses means that 2 friendly people were hanging out, but friendly, I'll put that in quotations because 2 people can share a drink and be unfriendly, but at least they were friendly in a sense where they could have a drink of rum. So there's a cigarette pouch and initials P, C, or PE. I would say
The initials PC have been crudely burned. A sailor's work.
I would say that it's sort of impossible to see as anything but a C, but it a little bit looks like an E as well.
This
Oh,
aroma
right.
is familiar, but to recognize it, I must construct my associations in one picture.
So it's a sort of like a mini game where you find a perspective where parts of sort of fractured parts start making sense, and then you move some things around so that they become a part of the picture in a sense. So this is, I think, the bow of the ship. So I should probably do that, but it's not. It's looking a little wonky and crazy. And this doesn't go up or down. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of things. I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, it looks really crazy this way. This side made at least a little bit more sense. Still looks very, very wonky and strange. I remember this being a lot easier last time, but I think it was sort of having a fresh perspective, and now I sort of assume that I know how to do it, and I can't. Oh, there we go. Probably, possibly. It's starting to look like a boat. And then that goes to the back of it. This goes up and down, so I should put the back on it. I'm not sure how accurate we're going to have to be with this, but let's craft the ship, because it looks fractured in either case, and there's not really any other way to get through this. I'm trying to look at sort of lines and put them together, but they're not really going together sort of from any perspective, really. So maybe this is the wrong side. I'll try it again from the other direction somehow. But it's not looking sensible. I can't believe that the first time I'm getting stuck is in a mini game. But yeah, it makes absolutely no sense that way. Because there's a lot here that you can sort of use as a guide. But even now it just looks really crazy, I think. Like that triangle, is that it? I mean, it still looks really weird. Yeah, okay.
Yes. This is a coarse tobacco, quite strong and very popular among sailors.
So, tobacco, sailors use it mostly. Oh, crap. So, PC and Peter Carey sort of signal that it's his tobacco.
The Sea Unicorn. She was the ship that Peter Carey commanded.
And I guess Sea Unicorn is no longer, or then they just changed the name. And Dundee, yeah, that's where it's sort of stationed, I would imagine then. No reason to sail it all the way down here, basically. Boats are easier during this day and age, I guess, but you need to moor it and everything. So now, I think we've gone through the entire room. Get a sort of perspective of it. And we will look at the body. And I think one thing is that I guess this is his, it's like a tonic gin or something, and I guess that's his drink. So we can sort of, because he does have other drinks here, of course, and he actually has more, he has more rum than, no, he has 2 bottles of rum. He has 3 of everything, I guess, 2 of those, so he drinks everything, perhaps. Let's check the pool of blood first. Oh, so, okay, so it jumps around. Let's check the pool of blood first. So the 2 obvious things.
This wooden handle is plain and solid. This blood is from the pool underneath the dead body. Peter Carey tried to defend himself with this knife, but he did not succeed.
Right, so had a knife and he didn't succeed, so because the blood is his own, so he didn't stab anyone. He didn't stab anyone, and it was probably in his left hand, and this was in his right hand. So if he is left-handed, I'll just write handedness, because if he was left-handed, then having the knife in his left hand would sort of make sense. But if he was right-handed, then the knife probably maybe was used for something else, because his right hand has this notebook. And the sun is shining on my screen a little bit.
JHN are probably the initials of the owner of this notebook.
So notebook JHN. And yeah, can we open it?
The pattern of the blood stain indicates that the notebook was not lying on the floor prior to the crime, but it was dropped into the pool of blood after the death of Peter Carey.
So yeah, he had it in his hand and then dropped it.
These abbreviations mean something, but what?
Oh, damn it. The one thing I was going to do is sort of maybe take screenshots of items and things, because now I can't look at it again here, but I can, when it comes to the notebook, I can find it. I remember that, but so let's look at the harpoon.
Peter Carey was impaled to the wall by a whaling harpoon.
So yeah, it's like if you're impaled and then stuck to a wall holding a guy, that's why I was like, you have to ram it through him, basically. But that was not the case, or is not the case.
Peter Carey was fully dressed. He was not caught by surprise. It is possible that he knew his murderer.
Right. So he wasn't like he was screaming at 2 a.m. and he did that often, and his wife didn't really care about it. So, but also, I guess the murderer would have had to leave in a hurry because of the scream. So I'll write that down now that I thought about it as well. So fleeing suspect because he would not be able to know that nobody heard it, in a sense. But also he got in somehow. They were sharing drinks, which sort of means that he didn't sneak in either. Like he didn't. This was possibly a planned meeting, or at least it wasn't something out of the ordinary. And if Peter was really violent when he was drunk, or really agitated when he was drunk, then it's more likely that more than likely that the meeting was sort of, if not planned, then normal, at least, or sort of expected, I should say. So no intrigue there when it comes to the meeting.
Peter Carey was... This man is in his 50s, yet he still looks quite strong. The weapon fully penetrated the body. The force of the blow was immense.
Right, so it's someone really, really strong. And since we know that it was thrown and not thrusted, it's even more strong. And since he's a sailor and he's serving rum, I would assume, and he's a private person, I would assume that because he probably didn't make new friends along the way in his sort of retirement or whatever. It's someone that he knows. Right. So I think we've gone through this whole room, so we'll leave it right here and we'll carry on the next episode. So this is sort of the base for a murder, and now we know the very, very basics of what sort of is evident. So now we need to start digging, and we'll do that in the next episode, and I will see you there.